We will now hear from Camilla Hansen. Camilla is a PhD student at the Center for Evidence-Based Medicine at the Odense University Hospital in Denmark. She will present her study on the influence of industry funding and other financial conflicts of interest on the outcomes and quality of systematic reviews. Thank you, Camilla.
Thank you. Okay, so good morning. First of all, I would like to thank for the opportunity to present our study here today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we found in our Cochrane review on financial conflicts of interest in systematic reviews. First of all, do we have any conflicts of interest in giving this presentation on conflicts of interest? Peter Gøtzsche, who is co-author of the review, is also co-author of 2 of the studies that we have included. To minimize the potential influence from this, Peter was not involved in a study inclusion, data extraction, risk of bias assessment, or the data analysis. Otherwise, we have nothing to declare. So we do know that financial conflicts of interest impact on primary research. Most recently, this has been shown in a Cochrane review published earlier this year. This review was based on 75 empirical studies. Contrary, only a few studies have investigated conflicts of interest in systematic reviews, but we do suspect that conflicts of interest may also impact on the reviews. To our knowledge, existing studies have not been summarized and investigated in a systematic review. So, based on this, we wanted to investigate whether financial conflicts of interest are associated with estimated effect sizes, which refers to the specific numbers in a results section of a review, statistically favorable results, which refers to the direction and the statistical significance of the results section, and also favorable conclusions and the quality of the reviews. So we decided to use the definitions of financial conflicts of interest used by the authors of the included studies. So for example, one of our included studies defined financial conflicts of interest as employment, funding of grants paid to an author or a research group, and the funding of medical writers for review. But we did also investigate other definitions of financial conflicts of interest in different subgroup analyses. So we did the review according to standard Cochrane methodology, meaning that 2 of us did the searches, the study inclusion, the data extraction, and the risk of bias assessment. We included observational studies that compared industry and non-industry reviews and investigated at least one of the outcomes that are outlined in the objectives. We analyzed our data using RevMan and random effects models. So based on our searches, we included 9 studies. They were published between 2006 and 2017 and included a total of almost 1,000 systematic reviews with a median number of 121. We were able to get unpublished data from 4 of our studies and protocols from 5 of our studies. We based our validity assessment on 3 different criteria. We looked at the study inclusion process and the coding of financial conflicts of interest and outcomes done by the authors of the included studies. Most importantly, we looked at the comparability of the systematic reviews because we wanted to assess whether the systematic reviews were similar in all other important aspects besides from financial conflicts of interest. So overall, we assessed 2 of our studies as low risk of bias studies, because these 2 studies had low risk of bias in all 3 criteria. And as you may see from the figure, we only had 2 studies that investigated comparable samples of systematic reviews. Okay, so for the funny part. We had 2 outcomes that were related to the results sections of the review. And we found 1 study that investigated effect sizes, and this study found similar effect sizes between industry and non-industry reviews. Similar, we also found 1 study that investigated statistically favorable results, and our analysis of this study also found a similar frequency between industry and non-industry reviews. So we found a total of 6 studies that investigated favorable conclusions, and our pooled analysis of these 6 studies showed that industry reviews more often had favorable conclusions compared with non-industry reviews. We did find a relative risk of 1.96, but we also had substantial statistical heterogeneity with an I-square of 73%. So the observational studies measured quality by using a number of different tools. For example, the Oxman-Gaia tool and the Amsterdam checklist were used. In total, we were able to pull information on 11 different dimensions of quality. For the majority of our dimensions, we did not find a statistical significant difference. I have marked an example with a red circle on the presentation, and this shows that there's no difference in how often industry and non-industry reviews have appropriate search methods. For 2 of the dimensions, we did find a statistical significant difference. I have marked an example with a blue circle, and this showed that industry reviews less often assessed risk of bias compared with non-industry reviews. Overall, we did find a trend because all of our effect estimates indicate that industry reviews have lower quality than non-industry reviews. We tested our main findings in a number of different subgroup and sensitivity analyses. In particular, we focused on the risk of bias, the types of systematic reviews, and the definitions of financial conflicts of interest and outcomes used by the authors of the included studies. To keep it short, in all the analyses, we found similar results as our primary analyses. Inspired by the GRADE approach, we assessed the certainty of the evidence. We did choose to use moderate certainty as a starting point instead of low evidence. For effect sizes, we assessed the certainty as low because our findings are based on only 1 observational study, and we do believe that more research may impact on the estimate and also our confidence in the estimate. For statistically favorable results, we assessed the certainty as very low because, once again, our findings are based on only 1 observational study. We assessed this study as a high risk of bias study, and we found quite wide confidence intervals also. Finally, we assessed the certainty for favorable conclusions as moderate because our findings are based on 6 observational studies, and we did find a stronger association among the low risk of bias studies compared with the high risk of bias studies. So we had 2 main challenges. First of all, we found substantial statistical heterogeneity in our analysis of favorable conclusions. We did investigate this in subgroup and sensitivity analyses, and these analyses indicated that the definition of financial conflicts of interest and outcomes, and also the inclusion of both Cochrane and non-Cochrane reviews may have added to this heterogeneity. Second, we do believe that there's no validated criteria for assessing risk of bias in these types of studies, so we had to rely on criteria that we defined ourselves. And beside from that, we only found 2 studies that had comparable samples of systematic reviews. However, we do believe that based on our findings, industry reviews should be interpreted and also included in clinical guidelines with caution. We suggest that future research focus on establishing whether financial conflicts of interest impact directly on the results of the reviews, and future research should, of course, investigate comparable samples of systematic reviews and should also investigate different types of conflicts of interest and also non-financial conflicts of interest. So, in conclusion, systematic reviews with financial conflicts of interest more often have conclusions that are favorable towards the experimental intervention and also tend to have lower quality than systematic reviews without financial conflicts of interest. It remains, however, unclear whether financial conflicts of interest impact directly on the results of the systematic reviews. So, thank you.
questions for Camilla. Please come to the microphone.
Yes, congrats also for your presentation. I have exactly the same conflict of interest as before, but I would like to congratulate you for your slide about the methodology of the quality. That is in agreement with my previous expectations. I mean, industry usually knows which studies have been done before they conduct the systematic review. So, if they ask for a systematic review, they are probably knowing what the results of the systematic review will be. That's a feeling. I have no data on this. And let me say two other things. Can you go back to your slides, please?
Yeah, which one?
The previous one, not the next one. Previous one, and then again previous one. Previous one. Another one, please, another one. Let's go.
I have a lot of slides.
That's the slide that I congratulate you. That's wonderful. I think those results are very, very important, and you have to highlight this. And then go again, back again, please.
Oh, that was one too far.
Okay. This is just one. There is, in clinical trials, there are two main differences between sponsored trials and not sponsored trials. One of the differences is that usually sponsored trials are highly powered. That means that if the alternative hypothesis is true, they have a higher probability to have significant results. So my suggestion to you is to concentrate more on effect size, on comparing effect size, than on comparing p-values. Because p-values from industry, well-powered trials, could be more significant just because they have more power, just all. But effect size, that's nice. And if you can go further to the previous one, let me say a very, very difficult point that I really don't know the answer, really. Lawyers, you know, they used to say, please never ask a question if you don't know the answer. There are two kinds of research. When you perform a confirmatory trial, usually you ask the clinician for the effect size. And the clinician say, that's what I want to know. How can I give to you the effect size? So those confirmatory trials are usually more on the development phase of a drug. You know what is happening, and you are just looking for a documentation for this effect. So my point here, and I repeat, I don't know the answer, is that previously we might try to split the data to make a subgroup analysis, looking for trials with a previously stated hypothesis, really based on other previous trials that maybe are more on the development phase, and the other trials that are more on the exploratory, on the truly research phase.
So,
I know that you are based.
can you wrap up your question, please?
Sorry?
Can you wrap up the question so
Repeat.
that wrap up so that we can hear from the speaker?
Yes, okay, that's enough, thank you. I think I already did. The point is that, well, okay, that's all.
Thank you. Well, I agree with your point on effect estimates. I think, as Lisa said earlier, it's something that has not been investigated that much, and it's something that definitely needs more attention.
Hello, I'm George Lundberg from San Francisco. Your study deals with industry sponsorship and conflicts of interest. How did the group consider physician companies and hospital companies as part of industry, or did they?
I think in general the studies that we included would define hospital industry as non-industry reviews, as far as I remember. And I think I would agree with that non-profit organizations are non-industry. Did I understand your question correct?
You raise the issue of profit-making versus non-profit. Is there a difference, and in which countries?
That's a good question. That's not something that I can answer right now, but I would be happy to return with an answer later today.
I also had a question about, I don't know if your sample size allows you to address that, but you looked at a fairly large span of time, so I think it was studies as early as 2006. Yeah. Did you see anything in terms of a longitudinal effect of improvement or
well, we didn't
decline?
investigate that because
okay.
the sample didn't allow us to,
right.
But that's definitely something that would be worth investigating.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions in the room? No? Do we have anything, Theo? No? People who are following online, you are absolutely welcome to ask questions. So, okay, thanks very much, Camilla.